it going, everybody? So we're back in chapter 2 of Matthew, and I think we're going to be able to get through chapter 2 here in a video. I'm trying it out. I don't think it's too long. Now, we started off in the first part with the genealogy, and we talked a little bit in the overview about how Matthew is very closely paralleling Jesus' ministry and life with the Old Testament, and we have quite a few clues here of which aspects of the Old Testament Matthew is comparing him to. So it says, "Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. Now when Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They said to him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet." So then he quotes the prophet Micah 5:2, "And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah." And so he quotes that. And then Herod summons the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. So he's asking them what time the star started, and he sent them to Bethlehem saying, "Go and search for the child. When you find him, come back," right? And he says, so that I too may come and worship him. And after listening to the king, they went on their way. And the star that they had seen, when it rose, went before them until it rested over the place where Jesus was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceeding. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped. So they gave him gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now, how many wise men? I'm sorry, did it say how many wise men there were? Didn't. But 3 seems like a good number. So they say he's King of the Jews, right? So they're saying, these wise men are saying this. It's also interesting to note that Jesus is born in Bethlehem, and the wise men came from the east, which is where Babylon would have been. In fact, some people think that these are Babylonian wise men, which is a throwback to the prophetic days when Babylon enslaved Israel. So Matthew points to the prophets as evidence that Jesus is fulfilling his role, right? He points to Micah. They present gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They're warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, so they go home a different way. And verse 13, it says, "Now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you." So again, Egypt is a big clue as to what they're doing. And he goes on to say, "This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, Out of Egypt I called my son." So Jesus is taken to Egypt as a child. When Herod, so verses 16 through 18, Herod saw that he had been tricked and orders that they kill all the male children 2 or under, right? According to the time that he had figured out from the wise men of when Jesus was to be born. And it fulfills a prophecy from Jeremiah, which is listed in 18. And then there's the return to Nazareth. So Herod dies, and angel of the Lord appears to Joseph saying, take them back to Israel. So they get up and they go back. When he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene. So again, lots of references to his role in this prophecy being fulfilled in chapter 2. And some interesting things. So the Jewish people hearing this would have been extremely familiar with a little story you might have heard called Exodus. And so this idea of Jesus going down into Egypt, and then being met with infanticide, Herod saying to kill all the male babies under 2, this horrific thing mirrors the Exodus story, where Pharaoh was trying to erase the seed of Israel, all the male children, and so he orders them all to be murdered. And there are 2 women, Puah, and I can't remember the other lady's name. And they basically say, well, the Hebrew women just give birth so fast, we can't get there to kill the babies. Well, so there are many parallels here to Exodus. And when it comes back again, he's referencing even more prophecy as they come back from Egypt in chapter 2. So lots of little references there. And lots of different tie-ins between the different prophets and the Exodus story. I would challenge you to write down, like, as you go through, to read chapter 2 and then see if anything stands out as being something you may have heard in Exodus. I think that's a cool little game to play. But again, Matthew has this very focused, he's very focused in his attempt to draw parallels between Jesus' life and the prophets. And again, I think this is clear. There's more evidence, because a lot of people in Christianity today, I feel like, really believe that Jesus abolished the law, that he came and destroyed it, and that we don't have to live by the law. And that's the point of the New Testament, is that Jesus made it so that we do not have to live under the law. Jesus actually reveals the law and the intent of the law and encourages us to strive for the intent of the law, which means living by the law. And so individual expressions of that are important. A lot of people point to dietary restrictions and cultural codes of the time as being the same type of law as the moral or natural law, such as the 2 tables of law, the 10 Commandments. It's not necessarily. So again, there's a lot of tying into the Old Testament. And I think what was really important in reading the Gospel of Matthew was understanding that to the early church, the Old Testament was the Bible. Like that was it. The scrolls were that. They were building the rest of it as they went. But the Gospels and all of this didn't come until later. The Old Testament would have been the Word of God. So tying those relationships together between what's happening with Jesus and the Old Testament would have been a very incredibly natural thing to do. And in fact, it stands as a foundation for Jesus' ministry here. I think understanding that really helped me get my head around a lot of this. So that's kind of an interesting point for chapter 2. So with that, we'll head into chapter 3, or I think chapter 3 is going to be next, and we'll jump into that. And we've got that, and then the temptation of Jesus, and then we're at the Beatitudes in the first discourse. So very excited about that. So that's all I've got. Like I said, like and subscribe if you want to catch all these as they come out. Hopefully, put down below what you liked about this video, if you learned anything interesting, or if you've got a specific take you wanted to share. I'd love to hear it. But like and subscribe, catch all the videos as they come out, and I will catch you in the next one. All right, peace.